Hey guys, welcome to Lacave Inside. In this tutorial I want to show you an overview of my song Broken Heart in the radio edit. I want to show you how I built the song, how I arranged it, and how I did the mixdown and the mastering. Okay, let's go. First of all, when I do arrangements, I'm working with Cubase Pro 10. I'm trying to get everything organized, so that's why I'm using a lot of the folders. You can see the full song, and it's basically two folders. One folder for the vocals and one folder for the instrument part. Let's check out the different parts of the song. These are the vocals. Vocals are here in yellow and orange most of the time. Additional vocals are here that violet one and the magenta one. What I would recommend is that you use a color scheme that you know which part is which color, so it makes it a lot easier to navigate inside your project. My drums, like slaps and hi-hats, are always green. The hi-hats are high green and the clap and snares are dark green. The percussions are most of the time green. In that case, this is a special percussion, that's why I did it here in the blue. The bass drum is always with that red color, and the bass line is in light red. The main instruments are magenta ones, and the leading or background or whatever are here in violet or that purple one. I'm using a lot of filters, a lot of here uplifters, downlifters, explosions, something like this. I do all the special effects in blue, here in light blue or in the full blue one. And here at the bottom you can see the crash. Let's make a quick overview. First of all, the start. On a radio edit, it's very important that you come to the point very quick, so that's why I decided here to make a short intro. And thereafter, let's go with the chorus right here. After the chorus, it comes the first verse. After that one, a transition to the chorus. I just feel so broken hearted, baby, where are you? And the next verse. The darkest nights that verse differs a little bit because I have here some new elements bringing in. You can hear it over there. Yeah, following here is a breakdown. I like it to do ups and downs inside the song because then the chorus gets even more energy and you can have a lot of more influence on the, in that case here, for the radio or on the dance floor. So I would recommend you to focus what you want to do, and you try to get some up and downs inside the song, that the energy rises until the last chorus over the year. That's why I decided to do a kind of breakdown in that section, so to reduce the energy, and then for the last chorus you have got a lot of more energy and a lot of more power inside your song. Now the uplifting part. I just feel so broken hearted, and that's the last drop, or in that case the last chorus. With a lot of more energy, a lot of more instruments. Yeah, let's check out the instrumental first. For that I'll mute the vocals. So that's cool if you're working with folders, so you can easily just here mute all your vocals. Now I'll give you an overview of the instrumental, how I did the instrumental, and which are the main elements of the instrumental. First, the bass drum. It's a bass drum that fits very well to the whole song. My hint to you is, when you start with the track and you are about to search the samples, try to use samples that fit together. Let's check out the bass drum. Here in that case, it's built with the Kick 2 plugin. I've used a preset and then I tweaked it a little bit, or maybe roughly more than just a little bit. I like that one because you can change the pitch envelope, the amp envelope, and you can layer some bass drums over top. That's why, if you have a look here to the inserts and the equalizer, I didn't do almost anything on the bass drum, because the bass drum itself sounds that good that I don't have to tweak it in any way. So I just load a little bit the bass, but that's all. No transient shaper, no boosting, no cutting. It just sounds well. So try to use samples that sound very well. It will help you a lot when it comes to the mixing stage. It must fit good with the bass line in that case. Let's have a look at the bass line. So the bass line is built with Spl plugin. Here I did some pumping effect, if you hear it alone. When disable the shaper box, you can hear the whole bass. When I enable the shaper box, you can hear that pumping effect. In that case, I like to use the shaper box because it's very good. You can see even where the wave line, what it's doing, and yeah, it's very handy for me to do things like that. Sometimes it's better if you use a compressor and sidechain that one from the bass drum side. Sometimes it's better if you use plugins like the shaper box. It depends on the material, it depends what you really want. I also added here some Transient Designer to the bass line, because the problem was the bass line was a little bit too far in the background, and would like to have it more up to the front. If you increase the volume, you get the overall sound, so all the mud and which produced the bass as well comes to the front, and I just want the attack a little bit more in the front, and then the bass line seems to be more forward, but it doesn't interact with the bass line or with other sounds, and don't mud your whole song too much. What I also did is I used the multiband compressor on the bass line. That's a cool trick if you have a bass drum which has a lot of bass, and the bass line itself has a lot of bass. So then you can try to just lower the bass of the bass line if the bass drum hits. That's why I'm using the multiband compressor here with a sidechain, and the sidechain is triggered by the bass drum. So every time the bass drum hits, the bass of the bass line is lowered a little bit, and if the bass drum is finished, so then the bass comes up and fills in the gap which we now have in the spectrum. So they both fit together very well. Let's get on with the main sound. These are 3 synthesizers, the Nexus. I show you each one. That one's for the high. A long high. And some mid-range and bass. And they all together sound like this. Okay, and then I treat them right that they fit into the whole song. So if you hear them now alone, it is a little bit too less, so it is a little bit too less bass, a little bit too less treble. But if all instruments are playing, then these sounds fit together perfect in the song. I can show you that one with the bass drum and the bass line. So now every part of the instruments have their own place inside the spectrum. When producing and when mixing, think about not in two speakers where you have to share your audio signal. Think about a whole stage. So a whole stage has got positions from left to right and from front to the back. So from upstage to front stage. You need to set up every element in between these bass. And that's the point when you try to mix or even when you try to produce. You have to choose your sounds that every sound should be placed somewhere on the stage. And not two elements should be placed on the same place. So if you keep this in mind when you start even producing and arranging, because that will help you a lot if it comes later to the mixing stage. Here's the guitar sound. The thing is, if just these synthesizers are playing and the bass drum, the bass line, I've missed a little bit in the treble. That's why I added some guitar. What did I do with the guitar? First add some pumping effect, in that case with the LFO tool. I did some equalizing here. Just remove a little bit here on the low end. Because there was too much inside the song when the bass pumps up. I like to use the Pro Q equalizer and I like very much the dynamic features. So I can recommend you not to make static equalizing, so try to use dynamic functions. Then you can even treat the audio signal better as in static equalizers. I've used also here an electronic guitar. It's from the Real Strat. I can show you how it sounds. And with the treatment of the guitar rig. For distorting guitars, I like to use the guitar rig. I mostly do use presets and then tweak them as I like them. So then we have here these ones from the Nexus. The idea was here to have more impact on the bass sound. So every time when the bass drum hits, I needed a little bit more on the bass, just to give it more impact, and that's why I've used that sound. And together they all sound like this. Okay, now we have here a plug sound. That plug sound coming from Spl, I've used a little bit of low cutting here, a little bit of high cut. It's very important to use high cut as well. A lot of you guys out there are using just the low cuts and not the high cut, and then they have some harshness inside the song. And you can prevent this if you use a little bit of high cut, sometimes more, sometimes less, it depends on the signal. Then we have some strings. The strings are to fill up the whole song a little bit, to glue the song a little bit together. Here again, the LFO tool on the strings to have some pumping effects to give a little bit more, more dancing vibe to the song. If you're doing a radio edit, always keep in mind that it should be played on the radio and it is not always played on high volume. So it should sound in the club as well as in the kitchen. So I try on radio edits to lower the bass line a little bit, to lower the bass drum a little bit, to make it danceable, but not that hard as in club remix. Here are some bell sounds, or plug sounds, whatever you want to call it. Also the spiral. Here I've only used some low cutting. Yeah, it's basically the elements here. What's going on a little bit more, but it's not very much. Just some spacey effects to fill it up. What I'm trying to do when I produce a song, make it interesting. So don't make a loop and then loop it every time. Tweak the loop a little bit. That's why I'm using a lot of automation. If I open up here all my automation, you can see on many tracks there is some automation going on, some filter here, over there, and on the vocal as well. I have used a lot of automation. So here are all the automations from a song, sometimes for cutting, sometimes for volume, sometimes for sanding effects or tweaking effects. It makes the song more interesting. And also some parts of the song or some instruments of the song should sometimes be a little bit more louder and sometimes a little bit quieter. Here you can see, let me have a look here on the volume automation. Sometimes it's cool to bring it just down a little bit. In that case, that was the point here. I did a short breakdown. So I did a small fade out for the strings that it will give the song, in that case, less power, and then when the drop comes, or in that case when the chorus comes up, you have got more power and more influence to your listeners. We have got here some percussion elements, the clap. That clap, I didn't do very much. Again, I tried to find a sample that sounds very well. Here I did just some low cutting and some high cutting. And of course the snare, I like snares very big, so I did a reverb on the snare. I can show you the reverb. It's, in that case here, the big snare. I've used the Pro R from FabFilter. I like the Pro R from FabFilter if you don't want to create a space that shouldn't sound natural. If you want to sound a space that sounds big or some spacey, then that's the right tool, in my opinion. If I want to produce a room that should sound naturally, I always use from UAD the Ocean Way plugin. I think it's the best room sounding plugin you can get. And for background vocals, I'll show you later, but just to make here everything clear, from background vocals, I like here the Lexicon for ADL. It's, in my mind, the best one for vocals. What I like to use in Cubase is different mixers. So I have different hotkeys. If I press the X, I got my main mixer where everything is on. So I can do here the normal mix down. If I press Shift and Y, I get up a mixer which only shows me the sends. And to make it more clear, all my sends have got a plus sign in front of. So now these are the sends. And if I just press Y, I've got a mixer here with all my groups. That gives me the possibility to find the things more quicker and to tweak them a little bit faster. And yeah, it's just for me a good workflow how to use all that different mixers. I've got some percussion elements going on. the snare effect, hi-hat. Let's jump over here. There we have got some more percussion. Yeah, that's just to make some more groove, to make a kind of house track. And you know, I like percussions, that's why I'm using that. Okay, how did I treat them all? The hi-hat. Nothing fancy, just a little bit of boosting here around 3.4 kilohertz, and again the hi-hat. Hi-hat is very important here on sounds like a hi-hat. The percussion. I did some equalizing here just to remove a little bit mud. I'll remove a little bit of the bass. That one as well. If you hear it alone. It sounds a little bit dirty and a little bit, yeah, maybe you wouldn't use that one, but I've treated it that it will sound like this, because then it's more in the background and you create more space. Good. The percussion 3, I just did some low cutting. That's that one. Again, it adds some deepness of the song. It's far behind all the other instruments. When you want to make an instrument or a vocal very, very near to the front, then there are two things. You can put it on the front, but if you put everything on the front, everything is still in the back because you have no room anymore. So when you try to make sounds be very, very to the front, just pops out of the speaker, then you need sounds that are very far behind, that you can create that space. If you try to use and make everything in the front, you wouldn't have the ability to have anything in the front because you have just one wall and you have no room. So that's a very important rule which you have to follow. The snare effect. Most of these samples here I did with the machine. I like the Native Instruments machine very much because I played the things with my hands and give them a little bit of humanity, a little bit of natural feeling. So it's not 100% quantized. It's always have some organic which you can add to the song, and it helps you a lot if you're creating a 4-on-the-floor beat and you want to add a little bit naturally or try to find something in the song that will help you not to be that straight. For the samples, I've used always the machine and exported them as a WAV file, because then I can treat them a little bit better. I've got a snare effect. That's just some to add a little bit. Here again, I have only used some low cuts and some high cuts, and the sample themselves sound very good. Think about to use the panorama always. If I open up my mixer, you can see I'm doing a lot of panoramic style because when starting with mixing, think about you have the main things are volume, panorama, and the room, so the reverb or the delay, and these are the most important elements. Try to get yourself comfortable with the panorama, with the volume, and with some of the dynamics, so compression, a little bit of equalizing, but these are the most important things which you can do when it comes to mixing. All the other elements are not that much important, like the fancy super transient shaper or the whatever. Volume, panorama, and the room are the most important things. A quick hint I can give you. I like to use the chord track because it shows you easily where you are and if your notes fits well. So in that case, I have here set everything up to the chord track, Now I can see if my sound are sounding well to the chord or if they not. It also helps you a lot when creating vocals and rearrange them or build choirs on the existing material, so you easily can see if that note fits to the chord or not. Okay, here I have some snare roll. I created that with the built-in sampler. Let's have a look. To make it much wider and a little bit more impact, I've used here for that snare roll the Smile plugin. I like that one because you can easily create your sound and make it wider or bigger or whatever. So that one is great. Use Endless Smile, that's cool. I did some thumb programming here also again with the built-in sampler. For the toms, I've used here the Spl Transient Designer because I want a little bit more of the transients, but not the low end of the toms. If you have a listen here, if you have too much low end, then it will interfere with the bass and with all the sounds coming up here. So I was trying not to have the bass energy from the toms. I just wanted the hits from the toms. Yeah, and to make the song more a complete song, I'm trying to use a lot of here like this impacts, uplifter, downlifter, explosions, crashes. I like crashes because I think the ear is trained from all the rock and pop music. Every time if a crash is hidden, something new is happening or something different is happening. So that's why I'm using a lot of crashes to introduce something. In that case, the chorus, here the chorus, here the break part, and then the verse. Try to use some small sounds, some low volume sounds, just to fulfill your whole mix and your whole system. Try to use sounds that will help you to glue your whole song together. So in that case, I'm using here that lasers for introducing a new part and filling the gap between. In the song, it sounds like this. Yeah, it will help you that your song will sound not too static. I like that sounds to create kind of feeling that the people who are listening to your sound and your song, they should lay back and say, oh, it's boring, it's lazy, what the fuck is going on. So try to make some tiny small sounds and add them that you like this here to make it more interesting and that you can focus the listener more to your song. Because if you're just looping something and then again, and the listener says, oh, I know it, and skip back and or skip to the next track, that's not what we want to. Here, these small things. Yeah, okay, let's go to the vocals. I'm trying to use the vocal as an instrument, so I'm not only use the vocals to deliver the message or to sing the song, so I also create choirs and special effects, sometimes from the vocals, sometimes with the vocals. So if I open up all the folders, we have now almost 50 tracks only with vocals. when it comes to recording, I recommend you to export your final or your almost done instrumental and then create a new project which is just for vocal recording, because of the latency and because of the stability of the system. What you don't want if the singer is inside the vocal booth and then your computer crashes or has dropouts or whatever. So try to use as less as plugins when recording. The cool one in Cubase is if you have done your recording inside another project, you can easily go to File, Import, and then you can say Tracks from Project, and then you can import into your existing arranging project, as I can say, your vocal recorded files. I also like to tweak the vocals. For that I'm using a lot of time Melodyne. A lot of guys ask me, do you use Very Audio or Melodyne or Autotune or whatever? What I can say to you is try it out. On some material Melodyne is fine, sometimes Very Audio is fine, sometimes the Logic, how is it called? I have no idea in Logic. Or whatever, or Autotune or what you're doing. It really depends on the material. In that case, I've used the Melodyne. That's because I've written it down here. If it's done with Melodyne, I add here the mellow syntax behind. So now that one is finally done. I'm using the pitch shifting tool as well as the time stretching tool. So to fit the audio file from the singer perfectly to my instrumental. When it comes to recording, what I do is I let the singer sing the part of the song 5 times, 10 times, whatever. I'm using the best one for the main vocals and the other ones for filling up it. Here in that case we have some dub tracks from left, from right, for the center. And yeah, some special things like that over here.
Baby, where are you? Keep on waiting for the love I die for. Baby, where are you? Keep on waiting for the love I die for. Let the stream.
Just to fill it up a little bit. It's yeah, far in the back. Here's the main vocal.
Let the stream come true.
In that case, I was trying that it should sound a little bit like Melodyne, so that's why I have treated it very hard with Melodyne. What did I do? The mixing stage. Here I've used the fab filter equalizer, and to remove some things I don't like this here. Let's just loop it.
Party, baby.
I'll remove that one, I remove
Keep
that
on
here.
waiting.
Of course, that's to remove the harshness, and as well here. But just boosting here up a little bit.
Party, baby, where are you?
Remove a little bit of the
Keep on
mud.
waiting.
The
Let the
megaphone
stream
effect,
come
as I call
true.
it. Here the bass, of course.
Party, baby.
And a low cut, of course. Then everything feeds up into the 1176.
Party, baby, where are you?
One thing, if the singer sings the song a little bit too quiet or sometimes too loud and whatever, don't try to make this or to remove that mistakes with a compressor. That's not what a compressor is for. You have to use automation, and here on Cubase it's cool, you can use the pencil tool and you can easily paint in here the volumes. It's not the automation, it's inside the clip. So that's a really cool one if you want to correct your audio. And I have corrected here everything. Here bring a little bit down, sometimes some breathing, here sometimes some screaming vocals. to make them sound as singing perfectly. And when that is done, then you can use the compressor. Thereafter, a multiband compressor is on that track. I was trying to remove the low ends here with a multiband.
Party, baby, where
Because there was too much dirt with the bass line, so that's why I have to remove that one. To add a little bit of more character, I'm using the Neve 88 RS, and to add a little bit here of treble. Thereafter, I've used the de-esser from FabFilter. A normal de-esser usually works like a multiband compressor or a dynamic EQ, so it looks if there is treble coming in, so it lowers the whole level down or just a treble down. What the FabFilter Pro DS is doing, it has got an algorithm which detects the sibilances. So it really looks if it's a S or a T or a P or a T or whatever, and only in that case it lowers everything down. But it doesn't only work like a dynamic EQ, so it has got a built-in algorithm which looks for the sibilances and only lowers that one down. So that's why I'm using the FabFilter a lot. I like it. Another cool thing on the FabFilter is you can have to monitor the signal. And you see there are very less things which should be de-essed. When it comes to recording, try to make the recording as good as possible. So try to reduce all the S, the T, the P, the pop sounds, whatever. Try to reduce them, or if you need them, just do them on the main vocal track, and on the other vocal tracks, just leave them. So if you say stop, make up or whatever on the background chorus. At the end, I've used another EQ because if you're compressing the signal, if you're changing the signal with a de-esser, with some effects, with whatever, you're also changing the sound and also the spectrum. And that's why I'm using a lot equalizer after all that processing to get the sound as I want it. In that case, I needed here to remove that one. Oh, sorry. Again, dynamically, and also the 940. Just to reduce that megaphone effect a little bit. Yeah, I've used here some sound effects. First of all, the vocal main reverb, that's the 4ADL. For that here I've used the UAD plugin, and thereafter it comes also an equalizer. If you're using sound effects like reverb, like delay, like chorus, whatever, you need sometimes to tweak the sound a little bit. So in that case, I've lowered here the bass with a low cut. I've lowered here the low frequency spectrum as well, because otherwise it gets too muddy and too dirty inside the whole song. So don't be shy. After a reverb, use some processing, sometimes compression, whatever, what you like. To spread it a little bit out, you can use also after the reverb some delay effects, some chorus, whatever you like. Okay, here are the dub vocals.
keep on waiting for the love I die for.
For that, I've used here a multiband compressor just to remove the low end. Equalizing. Yeah, I was trying not to let the background vocals or the dub vocals to stand too much in the front, so I reduced here a little bit the 800 with a broad shape, of course. And thereafter here a little bit of limiting that yeah, you can control the signal. These signals are also sent here to my reverb. Here on the main vocal we have also some delay going on, and these are two very special groups. What I did here is, let's have a look into my sound effects. This is the sound effect with the reverb, with the equalizing, in that case with the shaper box, because I like to pump the reverb a little bit. But I had a problem when my reverb and the original vocal are singing, and it was a little bit too much in the frequency spectrum. So I had to decide, so should I lower the reverb or what should I do? In that case, I've used a compressor with a sidechain, and that one is fed from the main vocal signal. So every time the vocal is singing, the reverb of the vocal is tweaked a little bit down, and if the vocal is finished, then the reverb comes up. It's a cool trick I can recommend you to use. Again, the same with delay. As delay, I like and I love to use the replica. Yeah, for me it's a very cool one. I like that one. And here was also the problem when the vocal is singing and the delay is doing as well. It's a little bit too much inside the song, but I need that amount of send to make it good and yeah, to make it wide and clearly. That's why I've used a sidechaining compressor as well here on the delay. That one is also fed from the main signal of the vocal, and every time the vocal is singing, the delay is lowered down, and if the vocal is finished, then the delay pops up. Then we have here some additional vocals.
Baby, where are you? Keep on waiting for.
A little bit of reverb over here, a little bit of limiting, a little bit of EQing here, just to remove the frequencies I don't want. Just to remove the frequencies I don't want. That one.
Keep on waiting. Die for. Let you.
And of course shaper box to make it a little bit more pumpy. What I like to do is to create here a track with the verse, in that case the chorus, and here with the verse. So it's more easily to tweak them a little bit different. In the verse, I like to have a little bit less reverb, a little bit different EQ settings than on the chorus. And that's why I always separate them into 2 tracks or more. Verse.
This is empty rooms. I'm begging for.
Here on the verse, I've used a little bit different plugins. I first used that one here, make a copy of them, and then I pasted them into that track over there. And then I started here to add some effects, which I've used, I think, in that one.
I stop to cry, stop to cry.
I've used automation to create that effect over here. Here you can see the automation I've used for that effect. It's basically a mixture of the effect tricks and the mixture of the loop mesh. That's the built-in Steinberg loop mesh FX plugin, which I haven't used for the last 6 or 7 years because I know that this was there, but I didn't know what it really can do. And at some night session where sometimes I do some night sessions where I'm playing with the plugins and look what they can do, and then I refined it and I like it. Yeah, it's a cool plugin. It's a Cubase built-in plugin. I definitely can recommend that one to play around with. Here at the end, some ad-libs. For that effect I have used the vocal synth from Isotope. That's a cool one to add some disturbing, some computer sound effects to your vocals. So it's also not static, so I'm using for the different parts of the vocals, I'm using different settings and automate them, of course. And here again I've used, I think, the loop mesh. Yeah, it's the loop mesh. And of course some delay, some reverb. What I have also done is I was trying to get more stereo sound of that mono vocal, and the cool trick is to here use the send effect to send it to two new effects. In that case, track this and this track coming over there, and I treat them as this one is panned hard to the left, that one is panned hard to the right, and I treat them a little bit different. So they have here the isotope trash going on with the preset overload very hard, and on that side I've got the isotope with the Honky Monkey preset. Let's have a listen to it. It sounds like this. That one sounds like that. So it's a cool idea to split a mono signal into two new files, or in that case to two new buses, and then treat them a little bit different. So you can produce from mono signal a new stereo sound. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're using here in that case overdrive or some different EQ settings or some delays, some different delays. The most important thing is that you have different sounds on the different signal left and right. It's a cool trick also when it comes to electronic guitars, and maybe you have recorded 10 guitars to overdub them, and then you would like to become them even more wider. Then send these guitars to some new basses and then give them another effect, some new distortion, some reamping, some whatever, and a very wider panorama of your electronic guitar. Yeah, that was basically a quick run through of my song, of the arrangement, of the mixing. Now let's come to mastering. So mastering is basically some enhancement, a little bit enhancement, and to make them louder. That's basically everything. So it's nothing magically going on, but I'm also using mastering engineers. Even if I not master them my sound master, I just send my mixes out to them and ask them for their opinion and how they like the sound, and maybe they find some mistakes. So it's also good if you have a few persons and a few friends, a few producers, DJ, whatever, send them your unfinished things and let them hear and let them give some feedback. That will help you a lot to improve, to find some mistakes. It's also important to let your music be played on different sound systems. So in the studio I have here 3 different types of monitors: the Genelec, the JBL, and the Client Hummel O300. I also check out every mixes on my iPhone, on my laptop speakers, on my car as well. So the mastering stage. What I did here is nothing fancy. I just boosted up a little bit here the treble, very broad. I boosted up a little bit the mid-range just to give it more to the front. I compressed it.
I just feel so broken hearted.
Here,
Where are you?
almost 2 dBs.
Keep on waiting for the love I die.
I did a little bit of equalizing because I thought when it was finished that here is too much of the 3.2 kilohertz. Thereafter I did some stereo spreading here on the high and on the mid-range. I've used the Brainworks BX Control V2 to make everything below 126 Hz mono. It's really important to have your sound playable on a huge club system, because a lot of time you're producing for the club. And that's why you should make the bass completely mono. In that case, I've used here the 126 Hz and everything below to make it mono, and everything up there is stereo. I like the BX Control V2 a lot because you not only can do the mono maker, you can also have a look at the mono signal.
So broken hearted.
And on the side signal. I can make sure if there's not too much bass, not too much elements, which are basically in the mid. You can compare and then try to figure out what's going on your mix. And with the fab filter EQ, you can then decide maybe you need to improve a little bit more on the side of the high frequencies, or lower a little bit of the bass in the side, just to make sure that it sounds as it should sound. Thereafter, I've used the Ozone Dynamic one. It's a multiband compressor. Here again, just a little bit, not too much.
Baby, where are you?
A little bit here helps you to make it more louder when it comes to the final limiting, so that you compress each bands individually. Here's the limiter. I like the Ozone 7 maximizer. Here the RC4 modern one is cool for club sound, for dance sound, for, in that case, for that radio edit. 2. Just a little bit of limiting, sometimes harder, sometimes less, but not too much, because I want to have some dynamic inside my song. And finally, another limiter, that's the Pro L from FabFilter. It's just,
Let this dream come
to
true.
reduce a little bit of dynamic anymore, because they too work different, so I like them two to be combined. Okay guys, thank you for watching the video. That was basically a quick overview of my song called Broken Heart, the radio edit. Some arrangement, some mixing, some mastering. I didn't want to get too detailed. Maybe we should come with a few new tutorials where we basically fixing on mastering, or only on mixing, or only on arrangement, or only on some plugins and some workarounds and some producing stuff with Cubase. So let me know if you have any questions. See ya!